Hello and welcome to another episode of the War Boys podcast. This week we're taking on a bit of a different topic, something that doesn't exist.
A possible idea, a dream of Iran.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about the Iranian Arctic, which exists in the minds of the Iranian Navy, but pretty much nowhere else.
Yeah. On a couple of articles and speeches.
Yeah, so maybe we should just start by explaining the basics of who claims what in the Arctic and how that all works.
Yeah, so the Antarctic is mostly claimed by southern nations who have direct lines of travel to it. Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Argentina, and then the United Kingdom and Norway also have claims to it because they were the first explorers to go down there. The Roald Amundsen expedition was actually the first group to find the South Pole, and the Robert Falcon Scott expedition was the failed British expedition to try and reach the South Pole. They were beaten by about a week and a half. But it's sort of that legacy of the age of exploration and colonialism. And
we're looking at the map, but how does it look to just to explain to the viewer, or the listener, how it looks like? Is it sort of like a pie chart?
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. It does sort of have that benefit of being roughly a circular continent. And
so we're looking at Norway, which has about, I'd say a fifth. Australia also has a fifth, with a weird little sliver of France.
Yeah, they're you can have a bit.
And New Zealand, Australia without France there would have the biggest.
It would be a third, yeah.
Which is, not great.
That's why we put all kangaroos in mates.
I don't know. I just don't. I no offense to the Australians, but I don't know. I just feel how many. Do they really care about that? They
don't seem like a cold weather people, They don't seem like they're down with
It's shrimp on the Barbie, not shrimp on the ice.
Yeah. Flip flops and utes. Not.
I think they would actually hate shrimp cocktail. I don't know why. Just because it's cold.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's kind of gnarly in general.
And then there's another weird slice of New Zealand claiming what looks like a sixth or so. Then the large unclaimed thing, which is also about a fifth, maybe, which is odd.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just because of the way the treaty was set up, it was pretty contentious at the time, is my understanding, and they kind of left a part that was this, we want to leave this unclaimed and sort of just open for exploration. A quick note: the New Zealand slice of it is actually where the main station that you always hear about in news is. It's called McMurdo Station, and it's actually owned and was constructed by the U.S. Army.
Oh, interesting.
And it's most of New Zealand, if it looks like there's a bite taken out of Antarctica in their territory, that is actually a huge glacier.
Oh, I see.
So it's that this map is a little bit misleading,
right?
But it is actually quite a large piece of land. And then Chile, Argentina, and the United Kingdom is sort of a mishmash of about a quarter, I would say. Chile, claims a third, a sixth maybe, but half of it's in Argentina.
They're all overlapping like that.
Yeah.
So what would stop Iran from saying can we get the unclaimed bit, since your guys aren't using it?
Again, it sort of goes back to that treaty in 1952, which specifically said okay, no one else can claim this.
Yeah. Well, most of these people are legit, but who really stands out to me is Norway. Totally other side of the world. I don't know how they really got a claim here. That doesn't really make sense.
Sort of finders keepers,
they were the Vikings were great navigators.
Yeah, and like, well, they discovered the South Pole, so they kind of get to like put their name on it, you know.
So that's how it works. You discover it's like basically all these sophisticated gentlemen sitting around talking about like finders keepers.
Yeah, this
like
is
dibs.
This is the realist dibs. Yeah, and I think a really important thing to note about Antarctica is compared to the North Pole, the Arctic. Which is actually just like floating ice on a sea. Antarctica is a separate continent, and so it has real land underneath, and so it has real resources underneath.
Yeah.
It was a primordial jungle, and so it has a lot of oil and a lot of other natural resources. So there is a real benefit to having territory there.
And like as things start to melt, it becomes easier to explore.
Yeah. Iran actually stated that in a defense journal, air quotes defense journal, sort of a propaganda website, but they think that by 2050 it will reveal some of those resources, and that's going to be a really important draw for them.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, they don't really have the infrastructure to like drill their own oil in the Gulf. Like they're pissy about Qatar drilling oil because they like are doing a better job than Iran.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should just backtrack a little bit and explain when and why the Iran decided to make it a claim.
Yeah. So the rear admiral of the Iranian Navy, his name is Shahram Irani, said, "Our plan is to raise a flag there." This was just after the release of, I believe, 6 American hostages. And America unfroze about $6 billion of Iranian funds.
So that was the first thing they thought of. They were like, "Okay, we got the $6 billion. Should we fix the infrastructure? Should we? No. Let's go to the Antarctica.
Don't worry about it. And of course, the State Department, the moment they got wind of this, were like, "Actually, you can't do that. Stop it." So it was like, they pretty quickly put it to bed, especially after Rear Admiral Irani said that they were going to be using it for scientific and military projects. The U.S. is not super down with that.
Yeah. So we're looking at a potential, like in 2050, like an Antarctic war between a bunch of these people. But I mean, first they have to get there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, a big part of that is having icebreakers to get through the seas.
Yeah.
Like that stopped most of the explorers for the entire 19th century, 20th century. It was not having real icebreakers, and Iran has yet to build a single one.
Well, there's ways around that if you really believe in yourself.
You just sail as fast as you can into an ice shelf and hope it doesn't destroy your ship.
I have to say that a random Antarctic exploration or like claim would be a great way for them to distract from everything that's going on in Iran right now, including the death of the president recently in a helicopter crash, unrest, like the whole thing with women and the morality police.
It's sort of their moonshot. It's a lot less impressive than going to the moon, but like,
I don't know, if you're from a place like Iran, it's pretty impressive because it's not. This is not. I mean, they have mountains.
Yeah, but it's not icy. Yeah.
But yeah, no, great. If that's the goal, then awesome. If that's the goal, is to like distract. They're like, okay, everyone at this board meeting, give your idea for how we're gonna get everyone at the public back on our side.
Oh, what if we go to the South Pole? Well, we've never been to the North Pole, so why not?
How are we gonna do it? Use the $6 billion.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge question of like logistics, right? Like it's always like getting down there is hard enough. It's some of the roughest seas in the world, and like then you need to be able to get through the ice. Then you need to be able to explore. Then you need to be able to set up like cold weather shelters, and like I would say Iran is reasonably a warm place. Yeah. So they don't have really any like experience with this. Their biggest like naval achievement in the last couple of years has been sailing around the world, which is like something we do.
Vasco da Gama.
Yeah.
That was 500 years ago, buddy.
Yeah, everyone else kind of knocked that one out of the park real early.
That's like the guy who celebrates after he's come last in the marathon.
Yeah. Still did it. Like, count it.
They counted us out. They thought we could never do it. They said they all doubted us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my follow-up question was like, what is the actual, because I don't know the answer, what is the actual extent and like of the Iranian Navy's capability? Like, can they actually project power and force the way that like, say, like someone with an aircraft carrier? Someone, I mean,
yeah. I mean, no is the answer. They only have 3 bases outside of Iran, military bases outside of Iran, and
that we know of.
That we know of, but none of them are particularly like far afield. It's Tajikistan, Lebanon, and Syria.
Yeah,
these aren't like
moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah. You're gonna need to go south a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they did travel to Brazil. And I mean, they did sail around the world. There's something to be said for that. Yeah. Like, clearly they have some ocean going ability, but I believe they're
guys in the 1600s that didn't wooden.
Yeah. I think it's really, as you were saying before we started recording, a function of these sanctions, right? Yeah, they're not able to build new things.
Well, I mean, that was part of why the Iranian president's chopper crash was they're like almost all their gear is like 40, 50 years old Soviet stuff, which they don't really know how to repair. So they just do their best.
Yeah. Ironically, I think that was actually an American helicopter. I think it was a Bell. Yeah.
Oh, still probably really, really old.
Yeah.
They don't use GPS navigation.
So wait a second.
They didn't actually locate. So this is the crazy thing. They didn't actually locate the like crash site themselves. The Iranians didn't. A Turkish drone found the crash site.
Oh my god!
Let them know where it was, and then proceeded to draw the Turkish flag right next to the crash site in the sky, which is a little weird to this.
Scoreboard. Wait, how did that drone get there that fast? I have questions.
Well, because the helicopter crashed near the Turkish Iranian border, also
with like with Azerbaijan as well, yeah. Right? It's like that
very,
weird,
very
like,
mountainous area.
Yeah,
but yeah, that I guess that is sort of representative of where they're at technologically. But were you saying earlier that they have a speedboat fleet?
Yeah.
So maybe if they just
they just sort of daisy chain speedboats.
But looking at that map earlier, I was thinking, what Iran could do if they were smart is go to the Chileans and the Argentinians and be like, yeah, these British, am I right? Trying to claim all these lands. Well, what we should do is all get together and then we get a bit, but also we should all get together and, make a.
Well, I mean, they are trying that. I mean, like there's the BRICS treaty, and that's probably a good subject for another episode. But that's Brazil, Russia, Iran, and China. And I will note that Russia and China both have a pretty large established foothold in Antarctica.
How does that work, even though they don't have territory?
So they can't. They're not claiming territory, but they have bases. They have research bases, and like it's a weird sort of loophole that you can't claim territory, but because they've sort of built. Everyone's like, okay, you did it. Like, we're not going to tell you to move it now,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Sort of embarrassingly for Iran, Pakistan actually has a semi-permanent base on the islands in Antarctica. Oh. So like they've made it, but so I guess in some ways it is sort of them trying to signal like, oh, we are a scientifically developed nation. We have enough resources to like get down there. Yeah. Well, whether that's true or not.
In this great picture that you'll see as our probably as our header picture or just as the profile picture of this episode, what it looks like Admiral Irani is standing in front of a green screen or some kind of cardboard cutout of the Arctic, and he's giving a press conference. You know what this reminds me of? Actually, is this is a kind of a niche thing, but like Mayor Bloomberg used to leave the city during like snowstorms, and he would do a press conference in the Bahamas,
right?
Do like a backdrop of the skyline.
I think Ted Cruz did something similar. Yeah,
this is what this reminds me of.
I like his hand position too. The like, what you talking about?
Interesting. There's something here about two ships. These are two Iranian naval ships. But they didn't saying here that they didn't get any further south than the Strait of Magellan during their circumnavigation.
Not that far south.
So they did circumnavigate, but they were basically hugging the coast.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, that's basically like Papua New Guinea, right? Oh no, Straits of Magellan. No, that's pretty far south. That's straight. Yeah. That's like Tierra del Fuego.
It does seem like Irani has acknowledged that they will have to build icebreakers.
Yeah,
aware of that.
I mean, like again, as you say, like the Straits of Magellan is like right on the coast, but if you go directly south of there, you reach Drake's Passage, which is universally considered the roughest seas in the world. It's 50-foot waves, battering gale force winds. Even modern, like the most modern ships really struggle with it. It's like, because it's all of the Pacific being funneled into the Atlantic through one pretty relatively small passageway. It just takes on an unbelievable amount of force, and it's really, really violent. So if you're taking like, you know, a 40-year-old ship and you have zero experience sailing in these oceans, like it's gonna be bad.
Is there anything stopping them from like getting as close as they can with a ship and then sending like a helicopter or something?
Mostly weather,
just so they can get the flag.
Yeah, just take it back to the old, like, we made it, count it. That's one small step for Iran, one giant leap for Islam kind.
I wonder what they think. I mean, this is half a joke, but I do genuinely wonder if there's anything in the Islamic text about penguins. Is there anything in the Quran about penguins?
I don't think they knew about penguins, you know, because like,
so therefore that's free reign.
Or the Ayatollah is going to have to rule on their like.
They're going to have to come up with it.
That is going to be an interesting conversation. I'd like definitely want to be a fly.
Are penguins halal or haram?
Yeah. What about polar bears?
I'm going to go with halal, but you also shouldn't eat them.
Yeah. I think they're really bad for you.
They're just cool.
Yeah. Also, there's not that many of them.
Yeah. Penguins there's a lot of penguins.
There's a lot of penguins, but not a lot of polar bears.
They're not good to eat, though, because penguins, they're just fat, right? Mostly.
I mean,
not that I would ever do that, but
I just don't know that anyone has actually tried.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
going to get down to it at a certain point. We're going to be like,
you know, I don't know.
Before we go to frogs, we're going to stop it.
Yeah. Well, you got to draw the line somewhere, you know, it just happens to be penguin. I don't know. You read a lot of like accounts of polar explorers, and like they kind of talk about eating, like they're more prepared to eat like their shoe leather than eat penguin.
Really?
Yeah.
They seem easy to kill or capture. They're pretty slow.
Yeah,
they don't fly.
Yeah,
huge masses of them.
They kind of waddle. They're not very quick.
You just run through and just start grabbing them.
Honestly, like penguin tackling, it would be very, very fun because you probably slide for a while. You know, they've got those slick feathers. Yeah,
the only thing you have to watch out for is like since there's millions of them, they all just stand there. The floor is just poop.
Yeah,
so that's very slippery.
Someone just draws the like short straw and they become like a bowling ball. You just like send him sprinting at like a bunch of penguins. He knocks a bunch of them over. Honestly, that opens up a whole new like lane for funny like animations. Like you take the old like bowling alley animations and just put penguins in them.
Yeah,
strike.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find out if the Iranians actually claimed like a specific slice or section, or if they just said the whole thing.
My understanding is that they've just claimed the whole thing. I mean, like,
wow, that's bold.
Yeah, they're like, I think they've even used the word property rights, which is even more bold.
That is bold.
Like, everyone else is like, yeah, we made it, we've explored it, that's probably our, like, we can claim it. They're like, no, it's our property, we haven't even been down there, and we're just like claiming eminent domain.
Yeah. Well, but from what a lot of sort of Iranian critics and sort of dissidents and people outside of Iran are saying, is that this is just more grandiose talk, which and it's sort of reminiscent of the Soviet Union and like other empires at the end of their days. Not saying that the U.S. is any better, because it kind of feels like the last days of Rome here too. But in Iran, I mean, we're set up a little bit better.
Hey, at least we have a station down. We actually have two stations down there, because we have McMurdo
Scoreboard,
and then we have the Amundsen South Pole station, which is actually at the South Pole.
Yeah,
and
suck it, Iran.
Yeah. I will say something that's very interesting about the Iranian rhetoric around the South Pole is that there's a lot of them claiming that that the U.S. uses it for missile guidance, and there's like no evidence of that.
That's isn't that part of their stated reason for wanting to go down there, is to try to. They're like, this is somewhere that they're launching missiles, or that's somewhere where it would be good to stop missiles in their launch path.
They're sort of wishy-washy on that front. Like,
yeah,
when they're sort of pressed about it, they're like, well, we'll use our military to like build to support the logistics.
Yeah.
And like build a research station. But then, when they're sort of railing against America, it's like, well, now we're going to stop missile guidance. And so, I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the likelihood of this actually happening by 2050?
Somewhere between 0 and negative 1,000.
That's pretty bad.
I mean, like, the icebreakers are really hard to build.
I'd say maybe they get the flag, but no base.
I mean, maybe if you count like flying a plane over and just like dropping a flag from the plane
with like a GoPro on it.
Yeah. So they just have to send one guy to like parachute in, and they're like, well, sucks, dude.
Just leave them.
Yeah.
Go walk to the nearest American base.
Well, I think there is sort of an understanding of like similar to international waters, that if someone gets like stranded in Antarctica, everyone will sort of agrees to rescue them. So yeah, but like,
I mean, I don't doubt that other countries don't have some military presence. I know people talk or have a lot of concern about Russian military expansion in the Arctic, especially because they're so close to the North Pole.
Yeah, and they've really,
Russian Arctic is like, yeah,
they've really pioneered icebreaker technology. I think they have, I can't remember exactly if it's 3 or 5 nuclear powered icebreakers.
Wow.
I don't think, really, we could do
something from a movie.
Yeah, the pictures of them are absurd. They look like small cities in and of themselves, or like apartment blocks by themselves.
What's the point of that?
I mean, it means you can have an icebreaker that runs forever and is always breaking up shipping lanes.
Oh, ship for shipping, right?
And honestly, that wouldn't be another really good episode.
Yeah,
but I think America
just checking in on global shipping.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the Russian Arctic,
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like not even having like the very basic pieces of technology, like. There's a real possibility that like someone's going to be chilling in like McMurdo Station, one of these scientists is going to be hanging out, and like they're just going to hear like bang, 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 and it's some Iranian guy in like 1940s, gear, and be like, well, we made it. They've still got like sled dogs. Everyone else is using, like tracked vehicles.
What if we just offered them the little tiny sliver of the Arctic that France has if they just plain ice?
We just
Calm down. Stop doing all this wacky shit.
we take France's last colony away from them. Like, you've had it.
They don't need that, but it's like barely anything.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think it's more about their own, like, the national identity. I think they might have forgotten about it.
we have a Arctic.
There's no baguettes. There's no snail. What do we do?
It does conveniently look like a nice slice of cheese.
Yeah.
Their sliver.
It does help that it's blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, you can't grow wine down there. What's the point?